we're calming the environment. We're, trying to calm every other energies down, thanking energy for participating with us and just kind of trying to leave everything as mellow as it was when we got there, if that's possible.
Absolutely.
And then again, if we're going to need to do a cleansing, coming back a day or two later when everything's kind of relaxed.
Right.
So it's not as much of a fight, I find, at that point, because if you're trying to do it right at the end of an investigation, everybody's rushed and there's all that adrenaline and the energies are high, and it just seems like it's so much harder to clean a place when that's going on rather than come back in a couple of days when everything's kind of calm and mellowed out and maybe the energies aren't anticipating your return for whatever reason. That it's much easier to kind of nudge them out the door that way. I find that that's a much easier way of going about it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Of course, I always fast 3 days before I do that, and I bless everybody. I even bless our vehicles before we leave because I just cover all bases. You know what I mean? That's just me. But hey, let me ask you something. With all the equipment that is out there and the equipment that you've used, what's your favorite piece of equipment that you like to use?
Well, as far as a standard piece of equipment, I really like my handheld IR camera and my recorder. So those are like, if I was stranded on a haunted, deserted island, those would be the two pieces of equipment that I would always want to have with me, plus a battery charger. But one thing that I really love is, there's so many new applications that have been developed.
There is.
With the digital technology. And so, it's fun to have a ghost radar going, and it's fun to have SLS camera going, and, those things are really interesting and fun to play with.
Yeah.
There's no proven scientific evidence behind them, and we've all seen on TV how it works and what you see, and, got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. But those are really fun toys to play with.
Right.
And so I really like to, when I get the chance to do those, to have those, it's really fun. The hardest part of, I think, of any investigation is, there's so many places that we do these things that they, with the EVPs and with the recorders and things, you're outside when you're like investigating a cemetery or anything like that, there's so much background noise and environmental noise that comes along with that. So sometimes having those, the SLS camera with you, and you're like in a cemetery, and you're like, okay, so there's like seriously a stick figure over there in the corner, and there's nobody else in the cemetery with us. So it kind of gives you this new spookiness about, oh, look how exciting this is. But again, we don't have any 100% proof that that's what we're seeing, but it's always fun to have those gadgets.
Right. And, if it coincides or validates something else you've got going on at the same time, that's something more you can add to it, which is great. And I play around and experiment with new apps all the time, try to weed out the good ones, the bad ones, and whatnot. Now, I did have one that was like a voice box. I found it to be pretty good. I did an investigation, I don't know, I think it was in August there, and it came across that said wolves. And I'm telling you, 2 seconds later, must have been a dozen coyotes just started howling away. It was pretty weird, but it was kind of got my attention anyway. Oh, it's funny.
Oh, well, and again, having those pieces of equipment where, when you can get that reinforcement and like, okay, so this actually, we've caught this thing saying wolves, and then the wolves go off in the background, and you're kind of like, okay, now I need to make sure I didn't eat bacon for breakfast because I really don't want to attract anything that might eat me while I'm sitting out here in the middle of the dark all by myself with a digital recorder
I got news
and a voice
for you.
box.
Here's a little tip, Christina. You don't want to go out in the woods at night smelling of bacon. That might not be a good idea.
No, nope, not at all.
Between the bears and the Bigfoot, look out. Oh, my goodness.
Well, bears, spiders, and the centipedes.
Have you ever been...
You got to be careful out there.
Have you ever been attacked by a spirit before on investigation?
I am very anti-agitation. I've actually been on investigations where people were intentionally trying to aggravate an energy.
Yeah,
I don't like to use the word ghosts or spirits, and I like to call them their energies. I mean, the way I kind of try to explain it to somebody, when they're having an experience, is kind of like, when you have a 2-year-old and they can't talk, and the only way for them to communicate with you is to throw a temper tantrum.
Right.
They're kind of like, hey, pay attention to me. I'm over here. I'm trying to communicate with you. And, that's how I believe that these energies are. Well, I don't think that there's anything that really comes out of it that's bound and determined to be malevolent on purpose. I think that, it gets agitated and it's irritated and it's been trying to communicate and trying to get its point across. And people are not paying attention or they're not listening. And, again, it can't speak to you. It can't get you. So it's going to do whatever, if it's moving things or turning lights on and off or adjusting the thermostat, however it can get your attention, it's going to try to get your attention. And so you have to kind of sit back and go, okay, this is just another thing that's trying to communicate with me.
Right.
And if you take it with that kind of attitude, things don't really get dicey. I mean, I've gone into situations where people were deliberately agitating energies, and it's, where it starts to, it starts to feel violent, and I was like, it's kind of like poking the bear.
Absolutely.
Why would you do that? Why make something that's already angry and irritated more irritated? I just don't see the point in that.
Right. And, it brings a good point. I've told a lot of families and clients that, a lot of spirits are misunderstood, and you bring up a good point. And being a psychic medium, I know from my own experience, a lot of spirits, they've been spirits for a while, and, 9 out of 10 people, they can't see or hear or feel spirits. And so for spirits to try to get a message across or get somebody's attention, it's frustrating for the spirit, especially after, 50 or 100 years or whatever. So, they're going to have the attitude, I've got nothing left to lose. Maybe I need to scratch them or knock something over or aggravate them to get their attention. It's frustrating. They become frustrated. And a lot of times it's misconstrued as being an evil spirit when it's just really somebody trying to get a message across or get your attention or something like that. And that's a good point you brought up, actually.
Yeah, I totally believe that. I mean, if you put yourself in that position, if you couldn't communicate with people and you were trying to get them to see and hear you, I mean, how else would you go about that? I mean, the only way you could do that is to do something that would that get their attention. And so, yeah, I'm very anti-agitating things that don't need to be agitated. If we're having somebody feeling like they're being threatened physically, or that the energy is malevolent in some ways, again, trying to go in and try to communicate with it and give it the opportunity through the equipment to say, hey, tell us what you need. Give us some information. If we can help you, we'll do everything that we can.
Absolutely.
And I find that you usually calm that energy down, and it's kind of like, okay, now that somebody's willing to listen,
right. Now,
then you're going to start getting more evidence.
Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, for the most part, you are in just what you are in life. Now, there are bad people in this world. I mean, let's face it. There's serial killers and stuff. Now, the only problem with some of those bad people, now they have a new weapon sometimes when they're dead, and it's called, invisibility, so let me really poke the living, so to speak. But, yeah, all in all, it's really just misunderstood spirits. I mean, really, it really is. Because, like you said, you can't communicate, you get frustrated. I mean, we're humans.
And we all believe that there's the demonic side of the ghost hunting, and we all have heard the stories and had maybe some experiences with that. But again, even then, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to anger something that's already angry. It's kind of like it's like you don't want to wave a steak in front of a hungry mountain lion. It's going to come after you.
Nope.
That's just how it is. That's how life works. And so, if you are in that environment where you think there's something demonic, or again, trying to keep everything as low key as possible to not agitate something that's already agitated.
I so totally agree with you on that. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had something follow you home?
I really try not to. Again, the only thing I really had that was like in my house was this energy that was living in my closet. I've never really had anything follow me home. I've actually had people, though, other investigators be investigating someplace, and they've called me and they're like, "Hey, this ghost keeps saying your name." So they're like, it was asking for you, and I was just like, okay, I don't know what that's about.
Have you ever heard your name?
But yeah,
you ever heard your name on investigation from a spirit?
I have. I've heard it not called out, but like I've a whisper on my neck where you hear your name and you're just kind of like, you turn around and you're like, what the heck was that? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna brush it off. It was just the wind. It's my imagination. I'm just because your imagination can go crazy when you're in places like that, especially if you're doing an investigation in a place where you're by yourself. Your imagination can kind of run wild with that, so you have to be really careful and grounded. But I've never, thankfully, hopefully never will, have something follow me home where I have to, again, like I said, I keep my home clean, and so hopefully whatever it does, if it does follow me home, I kind of stop it at the front door. Be like, yeah, you can't come in here. This is a place of positive energy. You need to stay.
Right. Well,
stay out there.
Well, like my house, I got my house warded up like, I don't know, the Winchester's compound, so to speak. I've got it all warded up. You got to have a sanctuary when you come. You know what I mean? Like you were talking about earlier.
Oh,
yeah. I couldn't imagine living in an extremely haunted house and then going out investigating. It'd be like you're going out to get peace. Who could live like that?
Yeah, there's always this, I think with every paranormal investigator, it's some way and somehow we all want to just, go live in a big Irish castle full of ghosts.
Until you get there.
Like the ultimate experience. Like, I'm just going to go live with all, but at the same time, you're like, where would you go and get away from all of that?
Right. Where's your peace?
You have to have some peace. You have that sanctuary. And, again, I could tell my investigators, make your home clean so that when you have that place to come home to where you can debrief yourself and kind of I'm going to wash it all away.
It's so important to have a place to go where you can have some peace from all that. It really is. Especially if you're doing it all the time. I mean, my goodness. You don't want to bring your work home with you, for the love of God. I've
been with, I've talked to investigators that, they're like, oh, I have equipment set up all over my house, and we invite things in, and I was just like, I would hate to invite something in that decided it didn't want to leave. I
call that playing spirit roulette right there.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I was like, that to me is asking for trouble you don't need.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for, because I'm going to tell you something. That brings me to my next point. A lot of people think this is a hobby. You got a lot of these young older teenagers, young 20 people, college students even, they want to, hey, on the weekend, let's go out and investigate this place and the fun and games. And, there could be there's a lot of dangers out there, not just from spirits, but like I was talking about earlier, you'll fall through the floor of a place, you could be trespassing. It could be all kind of things that could go wrong. It's no joke.
Oh yeah. Well, and then with the advent of when the ghost hunters came onto the scene and on that first television show, where they really tried to take a scientific, logical approach to it, and they tried really hard. And then there's other groups that we all know and love, and on TV that, they kind of get into this big charade of, it's all about the drama, and, and it's funny because I tell people all the time, I'm like, what you see on TV isn't what we're going to do. So if you want to go and be on an episode of Ghost Hunters, good luck for that.
Yeah.
Because what we're about to do is spend 6 hours in the dark, being quiet,